What is good, my peoples? This is Kobe2408. Since the release of patch 7.17 on the live servers, I thought we'd take a quick look at patch 7.18 on the PBE. There's a lot of changes to a lot of champions, and I wanted to go over the buffs and nerfs to those champions. Some of them are pretty minor, but I think some of them you'll be pleasantly surprised, especially with Ryze and AZIR. First up, we have Aatrox. Now, Aatrox is suffering a lot, especially in solo queue. He's not as strong. He's just a champion that has a really odd kit. They did a rework for him already, but it hasn't really panned out. Also, he's probably receiving another rework in the coming weeks or in the coming months, but just have to wait and see. However, they are giving him a buff on his ultimate Massacre. Active attack range gain increase from 175 to 250. This is extremely minor. Not much is going to happen to Aatrox. I think he's still going to be very weak in ranked. He's not going to be played in competitive. He's not going to be a meta breaker or anything, but I think they're going to slowly just, you know, work in some buffs and then eventually do a little mini rework on his kit again, but that's what's going on with Aatrox. Next up, we have AZIR. Now, AZIR is supposed to get a mini rework in the next patch, 7.19, or even in the patch after that, 7.20, but at the moment, he's receiving a buff on his ultimate, Emperor's Divide. Magic damage increased from 150, 225, 300 to 150, 250, 450. All this is telling me is they're not going to rework his ultimate, but they are going to do a mini rework on his Sand Soldiers. I'm not exactly sure what is going to happen to Sand Soldiers, but I think they're going to either decrease the range on the Sand Soldiers or allow him to have either one instead of two, because those Sand Soldiers are so devastating in lane. They can basically poke any mage out of lane regardless of how much range you have. Basically, he plays like a mage, but he also plays like an ADC because he has so much range with his Sand Soldiers. So just this right now, he's getting a buff on his ultimate, and then they'll work in his mini rework. I think it's going to be, again, around his Sand Soldiers, but we'll have to wait and see. But that's what's going on with AZIR currently in patch 7.18. Next up, we have Fiora. Now, Fiora is receiving a buff on her ultimate, but before I get into the buff, very quickly, they did nerf her movement speed, especially on her passive and her ultimate, and this is what broke her out of the meta. Now she's not being played as much in ranked. Her win rate is down significantly. Also, she's not being played at all in pro play anymore because she was this huge monster when she'd get to mid to late game, and she could basically run people down easily, especially if you were hitting the vitals on her passive. And now they're trying to slowly work in the movement speed buffs so she doesn't become this gigantic monster that can just hunt you down very quickly in the late game. So what they're doing with their ultimate now, Grand Challenge, there's a new effect. The movement speed bonus she gets from each vital hit has its duration doubled. So basically, when you hit any of the vitals, the movement speed, instead of being 3 seconds, it's now lasting 6 seconds. So it's a little bit longer. Now she can at least try to hit all 4 of her vitals on her ultimate. That way, proccing her ultimate for the heal for the team, especially for her as well. So that's what's going on with Fiora. Next up, we have Ivern. Now, Ivern is receiving a minor buff on his E, Triggered Seed. They did nerf this ability a while ago, and they nerfed it pretty hard, and they just realized, I think they nerfed it way too much, so they're trying to bring Ivern back into the meta a little bit. And so, on Triggered Seed, it is going to get a magic damage increase from 50, 70, 90, 110, 130, to 60, 80, 100, 120, 140. I mean, it's 10 per level on the magic damage increase, which isn't much. Also, the AP ratio on the magic damage is being increased from 70% to 80%. 10% is not much again, so he's going to slightly get an increase in win rate, but not much. But that's what's going on with Ivern currently on the PBE. Next up, we have Jarvan. Now, Jarvan is a solo queue monster where he becomes extremely tanky and does an insane amount of damage mid to late game, and so they're trying to target his shield, Golden Aegis, which is his W ability. Also, I believe his W stacks with Stone Gargoyle Plate, and so it is a core item on Jarvan to build Stone Gargoyle Plate, where it gives him around like 8k health, but that's what they're targeting right now, his W. So his base shield is being lowered from 65, 90, 115, 140, 165 to 60, 85, 110, 135, 160. It's by 5, very minor, nothing game breaking. Also, the bonus shield per champion lowered from 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4% to 2, 2.25, 2.5, 2.75, and then 3%. So it's down by 1% at max level. I mean, it's not much. It's not going to break him at all, but his win rate is definitely going to be lowered after this, but not by much. Maybe by 0.5%, maybe 1%, but not much. He's still going to be this solo queue monster, and he's probably most likely going to be played in pro play as well. Next up, we have Ryze. Now, for those people that didn't watch my previous video, Ryze is not getting a mini rework or even a rework. He's just going to get some tweaks on his spells, basically some buffs on his abilities. Very similar to how they buffed and nerfed Shen. They nerfed his ultimate, but buffed his Q ability. However, his ultimate does more shielding if your ally champion has less health. So they're going to do something with Ryze in that aspect. Maybe he does more damage with people being lower health, something in that aspect. But currently on the PBE, Ryze is getting a buff on his W. The AP increased from 20% to 60%. This is his Rune Prism. This is something where he roots a champion, so nothing game breaking. I don't think this is going to bring him back in the meta. They really need to fix something about his Q and his E ability, which is his wave clear. I think late game, if he even gets to late game, he's this monster. However, he lacks in a lot of range. There's champions that are better suited for the mid lane currently, like Syndra, Orianna, Taliyah, somebody that has more range, does more damage than Ryze. Ryze has to ramp up, and he has to build a lot of items that take time to get to the late game, especially the tier. You have to stack the tier. It takes about 20 minutes to stack that tier. It takes a while, so he needs a lot of help with his kit currently. So we'll find out what's going on with Ryze in the coming patches. But this is what's going on with him currently on the PBE. Now, Riot has been mentioning that they're going to buff Nautilus. However, this is probably the most minor buff he could possibly get on his Q ability, which is called Dredgeline. It has a new effect. Now refunds 50% of mana when it hits terrain. So you're going to get refunded half your mana from your Q ability if you land it on terrain, but you don't normally use your Q ability on terrain anyways. You're trying to hit champions, so I'm not really sure why they didn't just say new effect should be casted if lands on terrain or champions. This is very, very minor. You're only going to use Q to escape, so you get a little bit of mana back from escaping. It's not, I don't like this buff at all, but let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Awful, awful buff for Nautilus at the moment on the PBE. So last thing I want to talk about is Knight's Vow. Now the total cost is being lowered from 2,300 to 2,200, so the cost is going down by 100 gold. However, the health is also being reduced from 350 to 250. That's also going down by 100. Not much. The Knight's Vow still gives you 40 armor, 10% cooldown reduction. It still has its active where if you partner it with somebody, it mitigates quite a bit of damage. It's still going to be built, but there's probably going to be other options like a Locket instead or a Mikhail, something in that aspect. But I think most tanks will still build this. I think the reason why they've nerfed it somewhat is because most tanks in the LCS or LCK, basically in all pro play, are building Knight's Vow. They're actually stacking it with their support, so the support will build it, and not only that, the jungler will build it, so they have two that mitigates damage between the mid laner and the ADC. So it's a pretty insane combo. If two people on your team have it, it mitigates quite a bit of damage from your carries. But that's what's going on with Knight's Vow. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, make sure you subscribe, like, comment, and share. I'm Kobe2408. Thank you for watching, and you guys stay awesome, my friends, and I'm out. Peace.